Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. Well, if you tuned in last week, you know that we are talking about love after 50. Find it, enjoy it, and keep it. And I am so pleased to have back as my guest, Francine Russo, the author of Love After 50. Welcome back, Francine.
Oh, and I hope we'll have as much fun as we did last time.
Oh, I think so. As I was saying to you off air, I love your optimism, your positivity, your energy. And just to reiterate a couple of points you made last week, it's really about being okay with yourself and being more than okay with yourself. I think loving yourself, seeing yourself as a valuable person, and recognizing that you have a preference to find someone in your life, an intimate, but you are okay with your own company. You enjoy being alone. There's a big difference between solitude and isolation. You appreciate your own solitude, and you made such a point that I was very struck by the idea of going out alone and not feeling you have to stay in your house because no one has invited you out, or you have to go with someone. Just go out and be in the world and interact with people in any and every way. Be a part of the world. So that is absolutely wonderful. And you also talked about a numbers game, and I do think that, and it may sound crass, but we're selling ourselves in a way. Like we're all in the business of customer service. If you work for a company and you're not officially in customer service, we're all in customer service because we have internal customers, we have external customers, and we want to hear what other people need and see if we can match it. And of course, if what I need and what you need, if what I want and you want match, that's a very good thing. Right, Francine Russo?
It is. But at the same point, on the same topic, let me just say that it is different from marketing, because anything that comes across as selling seems inauthentic. I think we want to present our best selves, so that we want to say the things about ourselves that we enjoy, that we're enthusiastic about, that we like. If we love our families and being with our children, if we love cooking, whatever it is that makes us excited and makes us enjoy life, and also what we've learned from our past, if we've overcome sadness and learned to be strong and resilient, these are things about ourselves we want to put out there. And those are the things that will appeal to the right person.
So you said something else last week that was very important about being positive about former intimates. And I am just thinking about the number of people who are widowed and what it's like for a new person in their life if they talk about how much they loved their wife, right? And if there is room, is there room for me in this person's heart? So how would you present that, Francine?
I think, as a person who has been widowed, I would say that I was very careful, especially on first and second dates, not to talk too much about my late husband. I would say we had a really good marriage. We loved each other very much. We had our issues, wasn't perfect, but but I've grieved, and it was hard, and I've been through it, and I'm really ready to move on and look and be with someone else and to communicate that. And if the person asks a lot of questions, I would say, I'm happy to talk about this, but let's do it when we know each other better. Let me ask about you. Tell me about, your life, or what do you really like to do? What excites you? Do you have kids? Do you see them? What's your story?
I like that. I like how you put that. I'd love to talk to you, whatever, and let's wait until we know each other better. We had a relationship that was good. It wasn't perfect, and not a but, and I'm ready to move on, and I do have space in my heart. I do have space in my heart.
Yes, and also when you have to show that in a concrete way. When you start dating someone, when I was really ready to start dating, although I loved the gigantic wedding picture of myself and my husband in my foyer, I did not think that was something I wanted to have greet my dates. I put it away. I had a few photographs of my husband and my husband with the kids around the house, but not a giant shrine to my husband.
Beautiful. Oh, extremely important. I hear that. So inclusion with children, etc., but not a shrine. That's a very powerful word, Francine. And I do know people who do have shrines, widowed people in their homes. And yes, excellent point. It's a little tricky. If it was a beautiful marriage and there was someone passed, then just to let the person know what your truth is. And as you say, I am ready. I am ready to move on. Beautiful. So I interrupted you with that question. And the other thing you said last week about it takes work. And when you said that, I thought in terms of that you really have to concentrate. You have to think about it. You have to be willing to do the homework. You have to look into what people are saying. You have to take the time to respond, to select, to decide, to discriminate. And you were thinking of it as work in terms of one's own mindset, and you called prepping, prepping your own mindset, doing the prep work. So your own head work, as you called it. So anything else you want to say about that, or just tell us? Yeah,
I would say that there is work to be done in terms of one's attitude, because there's a lot of people go into actually start dating with negative or hesitate to start dating because of negative myths. There's nobody out there. All the good ones are taken. Nobody will date somebody who's overweight. You have to be young and gorgeous to get, to find somebody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what happens with these myths, these attitudes you tell yourself, is that you go out there and you shoot yourself in the foot. You make it happen. You self-sabotage. So you go out on a date and you think, oh, he can't possibly like me, no matter what the signs are. And you say something that turns him off because you don't think he likes you anyway. So you really have to check your myths against reality. Because, for example, if you're saying nobody will date someone over 50, well, the statistics and everyone you know in your life will tell you they know somebody who found someone when they were older. And none of these people were spectacularly gorgeous or rich or so out of the ordinary that they're better than you. So hold your myths your negative attitudes against reality, and also be careful of fantasize attitudes in the other direction, fantasy. You haven't even met this person, but in your head, you're already married off and on your honeymoon. Don't do that to yourself, because real life will be very disappointing and you won't be able to participate in what, in fact, might be a perfectly pleasant, even promising first date or second date.
Absolutely. Yes. So tell us more. What else do we need to know? What else do we need to be willing to do?
I would say one of the hardest things for both men and women is to correct the list of boxes they have that their partner must check off. I have heard women in particular say, oh, where I live, there's nobody appropriate to go out with. And I think, okay, what does appropriate mean? And I know what it means. It's one thing when you're 19 or 22 and your parents say, okay, I want you to find a nice Catholic boy who's a dentist or has a good job.
Yeah.
And, you have certain expectations for yourself. You want somebody who's going to be ambitious and be able to make a good living and have an exciting life. You want somebody who will be a good parent to your children that you hope to have. None of that matters anymore. So a lot of those boxes you check off automatically, get rid of them. The chances, unless you're very religious, the chances that you need somebody of the same religion are small. Mm-hmm. Chances that you probably have your own financial situation and you don't need somebody to support you. And you don't want that at this point in your life. You've already had your children if you're going to have children. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is whether you and this person connect. Is this person a good partner? So imagine, for example, that you've met somebody who doesn't check most of your boxes, doesn't have a great job, doesn't have a lot of money, is the wrong religion, didn't grow up in a place that was culturally sophisticated. And yet he wants to know about your day. He holds you tight. When you feel down, he tells you how great you are. This is the person that makes you laugh and makes you feel he really has your back. Is this what people call settling? I don't think so. I think it's a great relationship. So I say, get rid of every box you can. Skip the automatics. And if somebody contacts you and seems really not the kind of person you would typically go out with, try it. So many people told me they ended up with somebody totally different from the person they thought they would be with. And I can't believe how happy they are.
So true. So true. Did you use the word correct your list of boxes?
Maybe, but what I mean is get rid of them.
Well, actually, I love the term. I don't know if you said it on purpose or I misheard you, but what I heard was correct your list of boxes. And I maybe I heard it that way because that's what I think. Because in my clinical practice, I have a number of single people, older, younger, etc. And there's one woman in her early 30s who absolutely has this list of boxes, and I talk to her about it regularly. What is really important. But I do think that after 50, what we're looking at is we don't have to find someone of this same religion. We're not having children.
Right.
So the economic piece, though, I think may still be salient. And there's a very crass term that men marry women after a certain age for a nurse or a purse.
That's the generation of my parents and your parents.
Yes.
That's where this comes from. And I don't think it's so true anymore. And I think that, and you were talking about people now much older, and from a different generation, because I don't think this is relevant. I think that people, those of us who are now older are baby boomers, and we grew up in a different way. And both women and men look at the world more equally, and people can create. And I did aside from this being in the book, that, you have an option if you like somebody about whether to marry, whether to live together, whether to live apart, but still be a couple. And I wrote a big piece for the New York Times on this because a lot of older women are afraid they will end up as caregivers for their partners, and they don't have to be. And that can be an understanding from the get-go.
So how would you make that understanding?
Well, if you start to think about becoming a couple, then you can start to talk about, first of all, the issue of, do you ever want to live with somebody? And the answer might be no. I'm happy to see you 5 times a week, but I feel a lot of people feel more comfortable in their own space. And I want to live in my own place, and you live in your place, and we can talk 5 times a day if you like, but we each have our own space. And have you given, what are your resources if you ever need care? I have long-term care insurance. What about you? What are your resources in terms of money or children, or how you would, have you thought about that? Because I am happy to be a loving partner to you and to help if you get into trouble, but I am not willing to be a day-to-day caregiver for you or anybody else. I'm 70 years old, and this is not something I am able or willing to do. How would you handle it?
Beautiful. And I like how you put that. If you're becoming a couple, what does it mean to become a couple? And to talk about this and to be very straightforward. And many people, and I think that's a very important point to underscore, you do not have to live with this person, and you do not have to marry them.
Well, I think many older people, especially if they're reasonably affluent, do not have very complicated financial situations. If they have assets, they want to leave them to their children. If they own real estate, that's an issue. Getting together with another person, if they decide to live together, which a lot of people do, involves going to lawyers and having a lot of documents drawn up. What if this happens? What if that happens? Where does the money go? Who owns the house? Who gets to live in the house? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's complicated. It's not like when we're 20s and we're making our fortune together. We each have our own huge lives, our children, our real estate, our financial situation, whatever it is. And it's also possible, a lot of women think, well, I want somebody who can afford to go to the same expensive restaurants I do. You know what? That doesn't have to happen. A lot of couples have mismatched financial circumstances. One is fairly comfortable. The other has very little money. And not for any fault of the person with little money. They may have been an artist or a school teacher, whereas the other person was an executive. But they find a way that's equitable. Either they go to less expensive restaurants, or when they go to an expensive restaurant, the richer person treats. It works out. It works out fine.
Yeah, I like how you put that, Francine Russo, author of Love After 50. Find It, Enjoy It, and Keep It by Francine Russo, published by Simon & Schuster. And by the way, you can get that book anywhere online.
Yes.
In bookstores. Right. Find It, Enjoy It, Keep It. Love After 50. So I love how you put that mismatched financial circumstances. because almost always you're going to find two people who don't have the exact same amount of financial resources. And you deal with it. You talk about it. What's the big deal for the person who has more money to treat? Any of that. Of course, money represents energy. It has a lot of meaning to it. What meaning do we give to it? But we don't have to have cultural meanings. We can create our own meanings to it, and we can talk about it. And the other thing I wanted to say when you talked about reevaluating your boxes is that we can look at dating as getting to know someone, and more importantly, getting to know ourselves with that someone. And I'm sure our audience, Francine, would say that I know I'm different with different people.
That's correct. And
right? So you're getting to know yourself with different people.
Yes, I talked to, as I said, maybe 50 people who found relationships. And I remember one woman saying that it took her a long time to realize that what she really wanted was to feel like an equal in a relationship. And when she found that was the man she stayed with. For other people, you can always ask, when I'm with this person, how do I feel about myself? And if the answer is not, I don't feel good about myself, that's not a person you want to be with.
Absolutely. That is the key question. How do I feel about myself? That says so much. And I do have clients who have been with people who put them down and make them feel awful about themselves. And yet they're still with this person. And that, of course, is grist for the therapeutic mill.
Yes.
What is that saying about you and your beliefs about yourself? Now, what about how do you know when you can move into a more intimate relationship? Where do you think sex plays a role here?
I think that sex is incredibly important, and especially at an older age, we need to be more careful. It's not as simple as jumping into bed. For one thing, there are a lot of conversations that need to happen. First of all, you want to be safe. I totally believe in other people may have their own preferences, but I believe I don't want to have sex with anyone unless we agree it's monogamous. Mm-hmm. I also want to be very careful about sexually transmitted illnesses. It's not that if somebody has herpes, it doesn't mean we can't have a relationship. But I really think that now I've been partnered for a number of years, but before having sex with anyone, I always ask that we both be tested for sexually transmitted diseases. But more important than that, you have to feel you trust this person, to be kind, to be gentle, because, even if you're in your 50s, that's not the same as being in your 20s or 30s. And there are things that don't look the same. There are things that don't work the same. And I want to give you a wonderful example of a couple in their early 80s. They'd had 4 or 5 dates. They were really getting along. They were making out on her sofa, just steps away from her bedroom, when he pulled away and said, "Listen, there's something I have to tell you." She said, "Yes." He said, "I have a vascular disease and I can't get an erection, but I can give you pleasure." She said, "That's great, because I find intercourse painful." And these people worked out a great sex life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's very important. There used to be a term, September sex. I mean, there used to be the myth that people didn't have sex after a certain age. They just didn't. And the whole idea of people having sex and having sex lives that are extended because of penile implants and because of Viagra and whatever the other one is called.
Cialis.
Cialis, right. It is, there are so many ways to have sex without coitus.
Yes, and I have a whole chapter on having the best sex of your life, which is possible, believe it or not, because you have to talk to each other about what you need, what hurts, what you can do, what you can't do. You collaborate, you're vulnerable, you're intimate in a whole different way. It's not about performance.
It's not about performance. And I do think men are more subject to this myth than women, the idea that it's not sex unless it involves intercourse.
Right.
And I think that is a terrible, destructive belief.
It is.
That really gets in the way of what real love could look like, real love and real intimacy. Yes.
And
so
I talk about how women can help their partners get over this myth and find incredible pleasure.
Incredible pleasure. Absolutely. Because as Masters and Johnson put it in one of their books that they entitled The Pleasure Bond. And you can think about your partner being your erotic friend. I mean, that Eros does play a role, and it can always play a role, because I do think the pleasure bond does help couples get through the bumps, because all relationships have bumps.
Yes, and it's wonderful. The feelings the hugging and touching arouses the same endorphins and oxytocin and all those pleasure hormones, and you're just glowing, whether or not you've had intercourse.
And we all need touch, and we need a lot of touch. That is so primordial. We need touch like we need oxygen, like we need love. As you opened last week's show, it's all about love. And so we have just a minute. Francine Russo, Love After 50, How to Find It, How to Enjoy It, How to Keep It, published by Simon & Schuster. Your closing message to us, Francine, Love After 50, tell us.
Go for it.
Thank you so much, Francine Russo, author of Love After 50, How to Find It, Enjoy It, and Keep It. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.